Welcome back to RGO Photo. I'm Chris. Today's video was supposed to be a comparison between these two lenses being ultra wide angle zooms. However, this one gave up the ghost on me. This is the Sigma 17 to 35 f 2.8 to 4, and this baby stopped working while I was calibrating it. So I don't know if the focus motor broke. Well, actually just looking at it right here, it looks like the aperture broke because it's just a tiny little pinhole in there, and that makes sense because on the camera it's just dark and you can't change the aperture. It doesn't do anything. And I was going to compare that lens against the Canon 20 to 35 USM f 3.5 to 4.5. But since this gave up the ghost, I'm going to have to go a different route, because the idea was which one of these two wide angles is better, and then the winner of these two was going to compete against my first L lens that I have not even used or unboxed yet. I bought this before I had the 24 to 105. And this is the 17 to 40 f4L lens. So I'm going to have to unbox this bad boy, calibrate it to the 6D, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a few example photos with this before we put it on the test board. So we'll say goodbye for now until I get those tasks accomplished, and when we come back we'll look at those example photos and we'll look at the test board results between the 20 to 35 and the 17 to 40. So we'll probably just go ahead and shoot them at their widest focal length, a mid focal length, and then their most telephoto. So 17 and 20. This one we'll probably shoot at 28. This guy will be in the middle somewhere around 28. And then 40 and 35. So we'll check those out, check out a few apertures. Yeah, so that's what we'll do. See you hopefully shortly. All right, so we're back. We've had a chance to take a few photographs with the 17 to 40, or I should say pictures. They're not really photographs per se, they're just example photos. And two things I want to point out about these lenses that make them attractive for choosing between which one I'm going to keep as my ultra wide. They're both 77 millimeter filter threads, which is the same as the 24 to 105 f4L. So same filter threads. Bonus. The other thing that these two have in common is they are both internal focal lengths, internal zooms. They don't shrink or telescope. I need to jump in real quick. It's not that the lens is truly internal zoom. You can see here that it goes in and out, but it just doesn't get longer. So it's not a true internal zoom. So let's go into the photographs, or the example photos here on the 17 to 40. So this photo, I focused on the stop sign. And the idea was I squatted down and focused so that we could see the foreground, just see what that kind of looks like. Now I'm really close to these objects right here, these dried up sunflowers and the leaves and whatnot. So just taking a look at that, seeing what that looks like. You see a part of a fire plug over here in the extreme corner. Next shot. Obviously we focused on this right here. It looks a little soft to me. But how's that background blur? I think it so far it renders the background pretty nice. So here I focused on this one so that we could again check out some of the foreground down here in the lower left. And then as well as look at the background as we go further back here. So this is your background blur, and the sun is kind of behind me right here, so we've got a fairly straight on sun from our back to front. Okay, here we are at 40 millimeters, and check out the background blur. This is like tall grass, seagrass kind of stuff in the background, and obviously this is our focal point. Now this is 40 millimeters, so let me show you what 17 millimeters looks like when I didn't move spots. All I did was just go to 17 millimeters and take the shot. So this is 17 millimeters. 17, 40, 17. So that's the difference in the focal range there. Again, focused there. How's the background look? Looks pretty decent. Here's another shot focused right here, and I'm shooting through some grass so that you can see the grass in the foreground here, and then the background. It's got a decent bokeh, I think. Here, a little shot with this bee, hornet, wasp, whatever that is. Look at the background. Here's a sign that's out of focus. Here is really windy, so I grabbed this little plant so I could take a shot of it looking through the fence so you can see the background as well as the focal area. Now here we are at 17 millimeters, looking at kind of how you would maybe use this for landscape or architecture. And you can see kind of down at the bottom, you can see kind of that barrel distortion. So let me go over and hit the lens correction. And you see it flatten out down here on the bottom. These propane tanks though, they still look kind of goofy. They look almost smeared or smudged. They just look a little goofy. Let's hit the uncorrect there. The propane tanks look better uncorrected than they do corrected. Okay, so here's 17 millimeters again. We're focused here. 17 millimeters. And let's hit the lens correction. So that's corrected. Now 40 millimeters. So that's the difference in 17, 40. So let's hit the lens correction on the 40, see what happens. Just a little bit. Alright, so now let's go into comparing these guys on the test board. Okay, so here we are, we're at 20 millimeters on the USM lens, and we're at 17 on the L lens. 3.5 on the USM, f4 on the L. And you can see here, pretty close here. Very similar here in the middle. It's when you get out to the corners that the L lens is doing much better. .6. Go into the center. Again, both of them look really good. But clearly the L lens in the corners all day long like this. The L lens just kills the corners. So we're at f8 here. Something you might use if you're trying to get some landscape or architecture going on. Look at the difference. The left side looks good until you compare it to the right. So it looks good until you just see how much crisper it can be on the right. So do a quick corner check. We've gotten a lot better on the left. It's just the L lens, unsurprisingly, or at least it should be this way, the L lens is better in this case. Let's go to 28 millimeters, which is about the middle of the focal range for both of them. We're f4 on both because that's where the 20 to 35 goes naturally, and that's as big as the aperture gets on the L. You can tell that the right side is just a bit sharper. Good deal sharper there. Do a corner check. Not bad over here on the left. Not bad at all. Till we get to this side. The left side is just struggles on this USM lens. Let's go to 5.6. Again, the left side's not bad until you compare it to the right side. Just look, it doesn't look bad until you see, oh, it's supposed to look like that. So then, obviously the bad corner, not close. Good corner's pretty good. Let's go to f8. Again, the left side looks really good right here. It's just when you compare it to the right, you see, oh, it can be even better. Corner again, pretty good. All right, let's go to 35 millimeters on the USM and 40 millimeters on the L lens. We're at f4.5 on the USM and f4 on the L, and yeah, that's not even close here. Let's go to 5.6. And finally f8. So again, it looks pretty good on the left in the center until you get a chance to look at it on the right as well. See what the corners have done. Corners look really good on this 17 to 40. So that is the comparison, and I would say normally this would be unfair because I've got 129 in this USM lens, I've got 310 in the 17 to 40, so that's about a 2.5 times price difference, but I've got a 3 times price difference between the 28 to 135 IS USM and the 24 to 105 f4L. And I got to tell, I could just be honest, the 28 to 135 takes this fight into a split decision. This 24 to 105 may not even be better when you consider the extra focal length that this one gives you and how weak kind of the 105 is on this lens. This one may be actually a better lens, particularly in the center area. Maybe not the extreme corners, but definitely that center 2/3 of your frame. So price difference, this should not have been close, but this lens, the USM lens, is a bit disappointing. Now this 20 to 35 could be another one of those lenses that's really good on an APS-C. The middle portion of the frame was really good on this. So this would be a 32 to 54 millimeter on an APS-C, which isn't bad. That would cover 35, 40, and 50 mil prime type focal lengths. If you were stopping that down for more depth of field, maybe that's not a bad lens for that application. But I gotta also say the 17 to 40 is probably the most crapped on L lens Canon made, probably next to the 24 to 105 original, and some of the older ones just apparently just weren't that good. They just weren't. Nostalgia being what it is, they just weren't good lenses. But this 17 to 40, especially when it stopped down a little bit, it's pretty darn good corner to corner. I mean, the extreme corners are, the extreme corners, but they're still pretty darn good. And so, I don't know. I think this seems to be a pretty good bargain. I mean, we didn't check out F11, but what would F11 be? Would that be even sharper corner to corner? You've got distortion, but that's correctable. I don't put any corrections on in camera, and to be honest, I don't know if the 6D has it. I know the Nikon D600, you can turn on some lens corrections in that, but I don't turn them on. I'll just click that button in Lightroom if I need it. But anywho, I gotta say, I'm impressed with this 17 to 40. It's also pretty lightweight. It's also fairly small. Here's the 28 to 135. Here's the 24 to 105. Except this, like I said, doesn't change length when you zoom like this guy. So, I don't know. I don't know why all the hate. I don't have one of the 16 to 35s to test against this, but I don't think the original or the second version would compete. The Mark III version might compete, and the F4 IS USM L lens would probably compete. I'm sure, I would hope it'd be better actually. It's a newer lens. But anywho, I like this lens. This seems like it'd be a pretty darn good ultra wide, but I tend to not shoot anything ultra wide, so I've kept always zooming into 40 millimeters on this. Just doing those handful of example photos, I just naturally see it better at, I don't know, I guess that 40 millimeter ish range and beyond. So anyway, hope you liked this video. If you did, give us that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down there, and as always, thanks for watching.